Well, I was very thankful to Sogang University for employing me over this past school year to do some teaching of writing classes. And actually, without coronavirus, I wouldn't be able to do it. And the reason why is because I'm doing other work as well, and Zoom is so convenient. We do everything over Zoom. So I've been teaching writing like that. It's kind of great. I wrote a little bit of a prose poem, I guess, in this literary journal. Can you see that? Okay, so this is from Domabem. And I wrote a little bit about coronavirus and wearing masks and funny smells. So that was fun. I write about adoption issues, and I am an internationally adopted person, and you really cannot untangle diasporic issues from adoption issues if you're talking about international adoption. I was adopted in 1972 from Korea to the United States, and I grew up in Minnesota with a white family. I didn't know any Korean people. I didn't have any Korean culture, nothing. So yeah, I am an ethnic Korean, but I was not raised as a Korean. I was raised as a white person from Minnesota. But now I live in Korea, and I've been living here in my uncomfortable home for about, I guess, 17, 18 years now. So I guess right now I'm a foreigner. Like, I was born a Korean citizen, I have a Korean body, I'm living in Korea, but I am, I think, living as a foreigner in Korea now. So my first book is called The Language of Blood, and that was about my experience as an adoptee from the time I was very small until like right after I met my Korean mom, who has now passed away. And then the second one was called Outsiders Within. That was an anthology of transracially adopted people and also family members and people who had done research on transracial adoption. And then the third one is called Fugitive Visions, and that was kind of about the first couple of years when I lived in Korea as a foreigner and as an adoptee in the adoptee community. How can a person exiled as a child without a choice possibly fathom how he would have turned out had he stayed in Korea? How many educational opportunities must I mark on my tally sheet before I can say it was worth losing my mother? How can an adoptee weigh her terrible loss against the burden of gratitude she feels for her adoptive country and parents? So when I just did this one, I wrote for this literary journal, which is published by Domabem. That was the first time I ever wrote something for publication directly into Korean, and I needed help. So I had help from a friend to help to clean it up, and it was a very interesting and fun experiment for me because, as you know, Korean language and the English language in terms of syntax are like totally opposite from each other. So the way things come out is totally different. And, you know, I really, I think in English, usually, sometimes there are some things like I really don't want to, like, okay, so this is so cheap, but like I get most of my writing impulses out on Facebook, and so sometimes I'll make a little post in Korean because there are some things that I just feel that I want to talk about in Korean, like mostly about my family or yeah, but you know, basically I think in English, write in English. Think, what else do I have? I only have English, really. So there it is. And I really like what she did with her meditations on Hangul in her book Skirt Full of Black. So Sun-Young is adopted. She's also co-editor with me of Outsiders Within, along with Julia Opera. And she just did this like heartrending, beautiful meditation as a person who doesn't speak or read Korean on the Korean alphabet. And it was like really beautiful. And I thought it's so amazing that we can see the beauty in it, even if it's not our language. So my story with Teresa Ha Kyung-cha is I had no idea who she was, and I was introduced to her by this young white woman from Oregon named Emma, and she was like, "Have you ever read Dictée?" And I was like, "What?" And so she showed this book to me, and I was just blown away because, like, who knows? I mean, Teresa Ha Kyung-cha, like that's I'm sure like people have written their PhD dissertations on it. I know that. But just the feeling of all of that disjointedness from being an immigrant and from grasping at Korean identity and having only rudimentary Korean skills, and like this really deep sense of longing, I guess we call it Han in Korean. Yeah, that's just kind of how my stuff comes out too. It doesn't really come out any different. Yeah, so this is always bad luck to talk about what you're going to be working on. And I've talked about many things, like I've thought about, and like nothing comes to fruition. And I think I also, like after I completed Fugitive Visions, I also decided I don't want to write under contract either. Like writing under contract really sucks because you have to finish it on time. And I think there is something in there that I definitely want to write about if I ever get time, because like I'm selling insurance because I have to make money, and I'm a single mother and I'm raising my kid. But we lost a friend some years ago, and I've really been grieving ever since. And I think that the way for me to process grief is to write. So I think I do need to do that. I just feel so grateful that I'm included. Thank you so much, because I don't even hardly write anymore, but I guess I'm still running on fumes from what I did 20 years ago. So thank you personally, and then also thank you, for thinking about adoptees as Koreans and as part of the diaspora. Thank you so much for that. I would really like to ask readers to think about this as more than just literature, and that this is also about public policy. This is about decisions that we make as a society about how we treat the most vulnerable members of society, who are children, and how we preserve their rights, and what we think about families and single mothers, and how we deal with families that are having temporary problems. I would really love it for the society to be kinder to children. And that's all. Thank you.